Hey everybody, this is Howard. Um, I haven't done much of anything for a good week or so, and I decided to do a video today, a YouTube video today, and everything. I want to thank you. I got one more subscriber, six so far. I didn't expect I was going to get a whole lot because it's purely about writing. But you know what? I'll talk about movies. I'll talk about books and this is what I want to talk about today is books. I want to talk about. I had a great chat with two women at the desk um, about about Stephen King's son and in his writing. Um, you know, I want to say this off the top, right off the bat. I really believe he's a good writer. I really do. I think he has talent. I just didn't like the one book that I read. I'm going to put it like that. Um, I don't know, because I think Lock and Key, I think is his. Because someone told me it was his. So, and it seems interesting. It seems a little bit engrossing and everything. So, uh, but the book I read of his was Sleeping Beauties, and I didn't pay for it. I got credits. I paid it from credits from audiobooks, and I was listening to it as I was working. And um, the first 3 or 4 chapters that I listened to, I turned it off. I really, from that point, I knew I wasn't going to like it. I didn't care for it. Um, so I started watching other YouTube channel reviews on the subject of Sleeping Beauties of what they thought. It was written by his son, Stephen King's son, and then Stephen King wrote it. They both collaborated on it together, but I would say it's probably 99.9% of his son um, than of his father because it has more of his son's um, generational message to it than what his father. I mean, I'm not going to paint him as conservative, but in comparison, he is conservative than what his son is, and that's fine, you know. And that kind of goes back to some of the one video that I was talking about being controversial, writing about controversial things, saying controversial things is good because it gets you out there, it gets your name out there and everything. Um, but and that was kind of one thing that Stephen King wrote, about writing is that when you do research, if you're doing something, you know, that's science fiction, or you're doing something that could be related to mental health, someone who's psychotic or someone who's have an eating disorder, a character that has an eating disorder, and you want to know more about it so you can write about it more, if you write more about the medical terms than you do of a storyboard, then you're going to lose your audience. You're going to lose the people that you're going after, and uh, and it becomes more of a textbook medical book than it does as a story. And I believe Sleeping Beauties is kind of like that. It's very political, which I have no problems with. I have no qualms of a person writing political stuff. I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. Good for him. But but when your political beliefs over trump your story and you're just shoving your political agenda down someone's throat, you're going to lose a majority of your readers. You're going to lose the majority of your people. And believe it or not, it was very feministic book. Stephen King even said, he thought it was a good, he thought his son had a good idea. I think the idea was there. I think the idea was a good idea. Women sleeping in these little cocoons, and if you wake them up prematurely, they become psychotic and kill everybody. But it didn't go anywhere, and that's what everyone else said on YouTube as well. And it said it didn't have a point to it. It didn't. And then when everything was solved and everything was solved, everyone went back to normal. But they didn't answer any questions. So I was kind of curious what the feminists thought about the book, and just get a fair and biased, reviews on both sides, male and female point of views. Very few feminists liked it. They didn't think that it was done very well for the feminists, and it could be because it was written by two men. Could be, maybe it was prejudicial on their part. But I thought it was fair what they said. Some of the things that I'd listened to, the few chapters that I did, I agreed to a point. But the book was never to solve the issue of about how men and women should play play nicely with each other, because as long as we're going to fight and bicker between each other, there's never going to be any peace. Um, and that's sad, and that breaks my heart. That people have to fight with each other. And I'm going to be turning 45 in May 12th. I'm going to be 45, and I've told this many times. That I am tired. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of fighting with people. I mean, whatever they want, they can have it. I'm just tired of it, and it's a shame. It really is. But getting back to the book and everything, um, it was very politically charged, which, like I said before, I don't have a problem with. But when you are trumping your beliefs over your story, and shoving it down other people's throats. I think it might be age, and it could just be the fact that he's still young, and as he gets older, he'll start to kind of be like me and kind of wear down and go, you know what? I got to be fair. I got to be fair here. I mean, I can't just go after people. I write in your face just like how Stephen King write. He obviously writes better, but I'm just saying he is more in your face. So am I. I don't beat around the bush. When there's a sex scene, it's very graphic and it's very in your face type of stuff, and it fits well with the story, and it gives you the idea of who the people, what they, I mean, the type of personality. You can know about a person by what they do and how they do it. You know, even just getting a cup of coffee. How do they how do they put the sugar in their cup? Do they just slam it in there? Or do they pour the coffee gently and put the sugar gently, and maybe they have OCD issues. Maybe they're afraid of splashing this stuff all over. See, you can start to understand what your character is by how they act and how they interact with things around them. And one of the things about being a good writer is, like I've said, empathy. You have to have empathy with people. You have to have empathy with your story. But more importantly, you have to be an observer of human nature. You have to be able to, um, you know, observe them from a distance, and and kind of wonder, why do they do the things that they do, and there's a psychology behind it and everything. And I think that's a part of empathy, being observing and putting yourself in that person's position. And so I had a really good had a really good talk with two women at the dentist's office. Got my crown, not my permanent, but my you know um, my pre-crown. you know, waiting for my permanent crown to come in and everything. And then I have to come back and get that done. It's a pain in the butt. But we were having a talk. I said I really don't like Stephen King's. I mean, his son's writings. I just don't care for it. And they were laughing. They thought it was funny. It was how I said it. And I was using uh, J.R. Tolkien. I was using uh, the author of yeah the you know the Witch, the Lion, and Wardrobe. Um, you know, I had his name, and that's horrible. I could always remember his name. Once the cameras are on me, I can't remember anything. But but anyway, those two books were about Christianity. They were about Aslan. Aslan is Welsh for Jesus, and J.R. Tolkien is about sin in the world and about the little people, uh, you know, helping the world to eradicate sin from the world, and it's not the strong and mighty that actually wears the crown. And sometimes it's the weak and the meek among us that wears the crown and everything. And and that's and that's really what the gist of the story. But if you didn't know that those people were, or Leo Tolstoy, or how you pronounce his name, the Russian author, he's a Christian too. But if you didn't know that those people were Christians, you would never know it by reading it. You would say, oh, that's a really good, uplifting story. It has its dark moments, but here's the light and here's salvation, and it preaches that. It really does, but it's not in your face. It's done in a way so that the story is the sugar, and the medicine and the is is in the sugar so that you could swallow it and you could take it, and your subconscious can absorb it and everything. And I think that's what his son needs to do. I think Stephen King's son needs to learn uh, how to just use the story and let the readers like ourselves get the meaning of what he is really trying to say, but not force it. We either take it, accept it, or we don't. That simple. I mean, so the women were just blown away by what I said at the dentist's office and everything. And they were like, "Wow, I never thought of it like that." And I said, in a weird sort of way, C.S. Lewis. Okay, there you go. C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien uh, and Leo Tolstoy and everything. It isn't. And then the funny part about it is that it is in your face, but you don't know it. And that's how good of a writer they really are. Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, okay, was more in your face about how humanity shouldn't have anything to do with creation. And it was very Christian based. It was a very Christian based message. And it was really in your face, but it wasn't shoving it down your throat. If you know what I'm talking about, it sounds like I'm kind of talking out both ends of my mouth, but I'm not. It still allows the reader to decide for him or herself who's reading that. And you have to understand too, Mary Shelley um, is very rare, author, and this is why I talk about her so much, is because she didn't have to change her name when women had to get a story published. Her father, you could call it nepotism if you want, but she was a good author. She did good. She did really good. She's worthy of praises by readers who read her stuff. She's a darn good writer. Her father owned her own his own publishing company. He was the editor. He was the chief editor of his own company, of his and that's how she got her stuff published. Her husband, I believe, took advantage of the situation as a writer and married into the family of publishers. And Mary Shelley, she dealt with heartache. She dealt with but but the funny part about it is that she didn't waddle in it. That's what was so funny about her. That's what was so really amazing woman. I'm not saying it was easy, but I'm just saying, she had a husband that cheated on her and had children from other women and did some pretty. So, um, but she produced really good books. And, and I'm going to talk, and I'm kind of talking to, you know, the, the generation, the millennial generation and everything. If you're not willing to go through pain in life and suffering in life, you'll never be a good writer. You will never understand. It's pain and suffering is what makes the art. It's pain and suffering that and loneliness that drives people to write it down. It's like that song from Elton John. He did such a great song. Sad songs say so much. The lyrics will blow you away. I could just read the lyrics and put you to tears. Without the song, and the song just puts it over the top. And someone, it was like the part of the lyrics that says someone was in pain enough to write it down. And and it's those rough spots that make us better as an artist. It really does. Even if you're mediocre, it still makes you better because you can actually write about it, and you can write from experience. If you had a wife that cheated on you, you know, it makes a murder mystery even more better, of a woman who was murdered, that cheated on her husband or something like that, because then you can actually write down the emotions of that and everything. So, uh, you know, the one thing that the millennial generation does have is emotions and passion. Harness that, use it, but don't shove it down people's throats. Don't do that. I did it. I was guilty as charged when I was in my 20s with it, and it doesn't do you any good. No one listens to you after a while. After a while, people call you a blowhard, you know, and that's it. I myself am a Generation X person. Uh, we are we're the unknown generation, and because we kind of took some of the baby boomers. We're not really boomers, but and I know what that means. Uh, so we could take some of the baby boomer stuff, but we also took some of our own and we kind of combined it together and everything, because I think the Generation X really had no clue. I had no identity to them, or maybe we just didn't care, and it could be really what it is. We just really don't care. What I mean, I do see some of the millennial stuff in Generation X, some, not a whole lot. Um, I can see some of that in us, but for the most part, where I said to a friend of mine at work, and said the Generation X I always thought as being very sarcastic generation. We are incredibly sarcastic generation. Um, and so if we wanted to identify ourselves, it would be sarcastic. I remember The Simpsons. They had a Generation X, kid sitting, and he was laying back like this. He goes, "Cool," like that. Like he couldn't give two craps, about it. And so, but Generation X did a lot for movies, like the Blair Witch Project. Um, you know, was an eye opener. Made a movie out of $6,000 and borrowed some of those equipment from the school that my ex-wife went to school. Matter of fact, my ex-wife went to school with them and graduated with them and everything. And in Central Florida University or something, University of Central Florida, I think it is. And and she graduated as a teacher and everything. And you know I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was really neat. They graduated at the same time. I was actually at the graduation when they were graduating, so that's kind of neat. But yeah, I do want people to read Sleeping Beauties. Make your own decision, because that's what art is really. um I could see an abstract painting and think it's worthless, but someone could slap a $20,000 bill on it, and call it art. And that's what's it, well, for God's sakes, Andy Warhol made painted soup cans, and it was pop art, and called it. I think it's crap. My honest opinion. Is it kind of cool how he did it? Yeah, I would give it that much. Would I have it hanging on my wall? No, I would not. But Andy Warhol also said that in the future, everyone will have 5 minutes of fame. That's probably because he couldn't probably understand why anyone was buying his art. A lot of artists don't understand why they are popular for the most part. They really don't get it. And a lot of your younger actors that get into the drugs and the alcohol and like Joaquin, well, not Joaquin Phoenix, but his brother there, and you know, and all these other young actors at the time, before they overdosed and died on with drugs and alcohol. Um, Believe it or not, actors have a very low self-esteem issues. Most of your famous people have low self-esteem issues. I have low self-esteem issues personally that I'm dealing with. That's why I try to cut out all negativity out of my life. I try to do as much as I can, because it's just going to weigh you down. It's not going to do you any good. If you have hurt feelings about your family or whatever, cut your ties with them until things can get better, because you're better to walk away from things than it is to fight against it. Just walk away, take a breath. If you're a praying person, pray for your family. If you're a meditation person, I guess meditate on it. What I mean? But do positive things. Don't do negative things. Don't just to hurt somebody, especially your family, because they are your family after all. And they, good or bad, they're still your family. But you are better off cutting ties with your family if it's hurting you. And you got to take care of yourself mentally and physically. And if you're not good mentally, you're not going to be physically as well. And it's going to put you to an early grave. But like I said, if you're a God fearing person, put it in God's hands. I'm going to make another video, and I'm going to do a reading of Mary Shelley, the first letter, which I promised I was going to do. I did some practicing. It's not going to be perfect. I'm going to do the best I can to read it. out loud. Yeah, I just need to get the nerves out and just do it, and everything. I just want to, kind of read it and go over it and talk about what it means to me and why did she do what she did and talk about the details. Maybe I'll go line by line. I don't know. But I'm just going to read it and hopefully do the second letter and then go on from there. Do a little bit of this and that on the Mary Shelley Frankenstein. I want to say Shellings and Shelley. So, I don't want no disrespect to her because she's a great author and everything. And I'm hoping to do that with other authors as well and everything. Um, Going back, saying about the Sleeping Beauties and everything. One reviewer on YouTube said that another book by Stephen King's son, I just can't think of his first name. It's driving me crazy. Um, he said that it was done really well and he really enjoyed it. So it could just been a dud. It could just been, and you know what? It may not. Maybe he didn't mean it to sound that way. And something. And hey, I can write something, and I've read it and 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 say, gee, this sounds really good. And then you take 6 months away and you go back and go, what the hell was this? You know what I mean? It sounds angry. It sounds mean. It sounds miserable. I don't like this, you know. So that happens too. And like I said, I think his son looks so much like him. My God, I can't get over. He has gift. He really does have a gift. And I hope it gets better as he gets. And I think he's already. And that's the problem when you get to be where Stephen King is and everything. I don't think anyone really challenges you anymore. You just write a book and go, "Oh yeah, it's published." You know what I mean? And I think that's the problem. I, it's kind of nice to be at this level and we're really working hard on your craft, really working hard on your stories to get people to like your stories, to get people to read your stories, and to get feedback from people and to get, and all that. I think that's great. And then once you get up to the top, and I believe, I just believe Stephen King is up, you know, um, he's up there. I mean, he's the top writer, and he's looking down, on other writers because he made it. When you're making that kind of money, and everything, you made it, and it it can be very easy just to get lazy after a while. I mean, there's what am I going to write about? I mean, I already made it, but if you're true, true, true to your craft, you will keep. And Stephen King, oh my gosh, you want to do a book review, The Institute, read The Institute. Oh my gosh, I listened to it all the way through. It was addictive. It was the most addictive thing I have ever. I bought the physical. No, I didn't buy the physical, but I did buy the digital book so I could read it physically, and I bought the audio to go with it. And I was like, the audio. I was so addicted to it, and it was so good. And I loved the Bible quotes in the beginning, and I was like, I'm so excited how he's going to tie this in and everything. I was exhausted, mentally exhausted, listening to him, listening to the Institute, book, because it was like the day in the life in the Institute. And I'm not going to say anything, but basically these kids have supernatural powers. They're weak on their own, but they're very strong together. And they were actually forced to do experiments. Basically, they're what's called the military actually does it in real life in Pentagon. It's really interesting. It's mind control by using mental telepathy, and it's called remote viewing. And that's basically what Stephen King was writing about. But they were using kids, and once they burn out, they're just discarded. They're thrown into the furnace. It's really grim, you know. And so I'm gonna leave it at that. But it was a great book, and like I said, I was exhausted just listening to it. I felt like I went through it, and you just like, when are you going to break out of the institute, And this kid's a genius. He was off the scale, genius and everything. And because they were torturing him, he developed other abilities, and he kept those abilities to himself, but only allowed them to know about the abilities that he does know. And basically, it's about hubris and what hubris can do to a person when they think that they have control over another person, and really they don't. And they relax, thinking that they got everything under control and everything, and they don't. And just him, you know, listening to his day in life of being in the institute. It was sad. It's a sad book. There was some happy. It's very depressing. I'm going to be really honest. There's some funny parts, obviously. Stephen King can throw in some really good humor type stuff, which I think is needed, and you do need it in this one. So yeah, please read The Institute. It's a great book that Stephen King wrote. It is so awesome. So I'll catch you later. Bye.